Welcome to Death, Lies, and Alibis. I'm your host, Christy, and this is the podcast that dives deep into the dark and eerie world of local cold cases. We're in Circleville, a small, lovely town nestled in the heart of Ohio. It's bustling with tight-knit neighborhoods, friendly faces, and a sense of security that you expect from any small town. But beneath the idyllic surface lies a hidden darkness, a collection of unanswered questions that have lingered over the years. So grab your headphones, lock your doors, and be prepared to enter a world where the truth has invaded justice. Hi, folks. Welcome to the podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome. Glad you're here. And if you're new, welcome. And I hope you stick around till the end. Okay, today, folks, we're diving into the chilling tale of the Circleville Letters, a saga that began in a quiet town of Circleville, Ohio, back in 1977. But first, here's a little bit of information about the community of Circleville. Circleville is the county seat of Pickaway County. It's located 30 miles south of Columbus along the Scioto River, and it has a population of a little over 58,000 as of the 2020 census. The city hosts the annual Circleville Pumpkin Show, which I personally have never been to, and I would love to visit. It's on my list. Now, their website says it's the best little town around. Cute, get it? Circleville, circle town around. This case isn't just about anonymous letters. It's about how unseen terror can shake the foundations of a seemingly peaceful community. Circleville is a place where secrets don't stay hidden for very long. It was the kind of town where the biggest news was the high school football game on Friday nights, until the letters started arriving. Mary Gillespie was the first to receive one. It was a normal day, just like any other, as she pulled into her driveway. You know, the kind of day where the biggest worry should have been what to make for dinner. But there, tucked among the usual bills and junk mail, was an unmarked envelope. It was postmarked from nearby Columbus. No return address, no hint at who might have sent it, and inside the message was written in stark block letters. That's a huge contrast to the personal notes and friendly postcards that usually fill her mailbox. The anonymous author accused Mary, a local school bus driver, of having an affair with the superintendent of schools, Gordon Massey. Now, it was a baseless accusation that could have been easy to dismiss, if not for the unnerving details about her personal life that was woven through the letter, and the clear threat.
Mrs. Gillespie, stay away from Massey. Don't lie when questioned about meeting him. I know where you live. This is no joke. Please take it serious. Everyone concerned has been notified and everything will be over soon.
The secret author of the letters made them even more menacing as time went by. It seemed as though the eyes of the unknown watcher was constantly upon her, knowing details only someone close would know. And within weeks, more threats arrived, this time cautioning that if Mary didn't end the affair, well, one letter said,
"It's your daughter's turn to pay for what you've done. I shall come out there and put a bullet in that little girl's head."
And soon her husband, Ron Gillespie, he started receiving his own chilling letters. Like Mary's, they were marked by the same block print, the same cold tone, and postmarked from Columbus. And actually, I think they were all from Columbus. This time, the writer escalated the threats, claiming Ron's life was in danger if he didn't put an end to his wife's supposed affair.
"Gillespie, you have had 2 weeks and done nothing. You are a pig. Make her admit the truth and inform the school board."
As more letters began to circulate to other Circleville residents, the small-town buzz turned into a roar. Initially, neighbors whispered behind closed doors. But as the fear and the suspicion grew, those whispers moved into grocery stores, the shop pews, and the sidelines of high school football games. No one was above suspicion. Every glance held a question. Was it you? Could it be you? This initial terror marked the beginning of a legend that would hold Circleville in its grips, turning neighbor against neighbor and friend into foe, as the letters continued to arrive with no end in sight. Now, it wasn't long before nearly everyone in Circleville was talking about the letters. Who could be behind such outrageous allegations? Was it a jealous individual, a deranged mind seeking chaos, or someone much closer to home? The letters were meticulous in detail, suggesting that the author was not an outsider, but someone within their midst, intimately aware of the town's comings and goings. Now, according to the investigation By 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty, the Circleville Letters case remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in Ohio's history. Now, she was living in Columbus at the time of the letters. The Columbus Dispatch reported that the initial letters sparked widespread fear and speculation within the community. And historical records from the Ohio History Connection, they helped us understand the tight-knit nature of Circleville during the 1970s and the fear they experienced. So the quiet streets of Circleville, once filled with easygoing chatter of neighbors and the laughter of playing children, now echoed with hushed tones of suspicion and fear. It seemed as if overnight the town had transformed. The one simple act of checking the mail had turned into a nerve-wracking ordeal, with each resident hesitating before opening their mailbox, bracing themselves for the worst. Theories about the identity of the letter writer ran rampant. Was it a jealous individual, or a spiteful co-worker, or perhaps a scorned lover? Some even speculated about a more sinister figure, a deranged individual hell-bent on keeping the town in a prison of terror. And that speculation became the town's favorite pastime. But there was a real creepy sense of fear in the air. No one felt safe. The anonymous nature of the letters made it feel as though the writer was always one step ahead, watching and waiting. And the letters themselves were alarmingly spot on, not just vague claims, but specific, detailed information. And as the threats just getting higher and higher, so did the community's anxiety. One particular chilling letter addressed to Ron Gillespie said,
Mr. Gillespie, your wife is seeing Gordon Massey. You should catch them together and kill them both. He doesn't deserve to live. We know what kind of car you drive. We know where your kids go to school.
The stark warning left the Gillespie family shaken and paranoid. Their home no longer a safe place, but a potential battleground. And the signs. Then come the signs. The signs started popping up around town, accusing of Gordon Massey of messing around with the Gillespie's youngest daughter. Now, this infuriated the family because it was gross and nasty. And Ron would wake up early to go around the child's bus route to take down any sign that might have been posted overnight. And Ron even began to keep watch at night, peering out into the darkness, wondering if the author was out there, hidden among the shadows. The fear spread like wildfire. It engulfed the town. Neighbors began to eye each other with suspicion. Was the person you nodded to every morning capable of such hate? Could your longtime friend really be living a double life? As the community braced for what might come next, the question remained, just how far would the letter writer go to expose or harm their targets? And more hauntingly, would their identity ever be revealed? So Mary and Ron Gillespie decided to confide in Ron's sister, Karen Sue, and her husband, Paul Freshour, about the harassing letters they were receiving. Mary suspected another bus driver, David Longberry, who had once made a pass at her, and she thought maybe he was behind the letters. So the Gillespies and the Freshours decided to confront Longberry by writing their own letters they wrote back to him, hoping to scare him into stopping. And Paul was the one that was elected to write the letters to Longberry. And for a brief period of time, the letters stopped. But only for a little while. The harassment soon started right back up again. And on August 19th, 1977, the simmering tension in Circleville finally reached a boiling point. The chilling saga took a long, dark, and irreversible turn, one fateful evening that would forever mark the town's history. So Mary was at home. She was on her way to Florida to visit her sister. It began with a phone call to Ron Gillespie, a call that cut through the otherwise quiet night with a sharp sting of urgency. The voice on the other end claimed to know the identity of the mysterious letter writer. So Ron, fueled by a mix of anger and desperation, saw a chance to end the torment his family and the town had endured. So driven by determination to confront and unmask the author once and for all, Ron hastily grabbed his gun, an old reliable piece he'd kept for protection, and stormed out to his truck. His family's pleas to stay calm and reconsider his hasty departure were drowned out by his determination to protect his family and to restore peace to their lives. But Ron would never reach his intended destination. Later that evening, 10 miles out of town, the stark flash of police lights painted the scene at the edge of town. Ron's truck was discovered, an entangled mass of metal wrapped around a tree. It had gone 30 yards from the road and bounced back 7 feet, and then it rested. The sight was grim, glass shattered, the front end crushed, an unsettling silence hanging over the wreckage. Inside, Ron was found lifeless, his body bearing the marks of a violent crash. Nearby, his gun lay discarded, one bullet fired from its chamber. But Ron wasn't shot. This was strange, because there were 8 live bullets in one empty chamber. But they never tested the gun to see if it had been fired, so the empty chamber really can't mean anything right now because they never further investigated that. Residue on his hands or, if the gun had been fired, they didn't even test that. So we don't know when the gun was fired. It could have been fired 2 months before that. The immediate thought was an accident. Perhaps a loss of control on a dark and lonely road, but the details didn't quite add up for those who knew Ron. He was a cautious driver, familiar with every twist and turn of that road. It was a clear night, and the roads were dry. The gun, it just added another layer of complexity. Had Ron fired at someone during a confrontation? Or was he in desperate attempt to defend himself? Okay, folks, let's take a break right here. Get up and stretch, walk the dog, kiss the kids, but hurry back. Okay, we're back. Okay, let's not waste any time. Let's jump right back in. Remember, Ron had wrecked his truck and the gun had been found. Now, authorities, including the Pickaway County Sheriff, Dwight Radcliffe, he failed to find any bullet casings on the scene. Ron Gillespie had been drinking. His blood alcohol content, we call that the BAC, was 0.16. That's twice the legal limit. Now, his family was really shocked when they heard this because Ron was not a drinker at all. His daughter that night reported she never smelled any alcohol on her dad when he kissed her goodbye. Sheriff Radcliffe didn't rule on Ron's death immediately. He said he had questions. That was until a suspect was given a polygraph test and passed. But he evidently concluded that Ron had driven himself into a tree by accident. Now, we don't know who that suspect was that was given the polygraphs. Rumors swirled as the community struggled with the news. Some wondered if the letter writer had indeed figured this out and made this tragic outcome, possibly luring Ron into a trap with the deceptive phone call. Now remember, the letter writer had threatened Ron's life several times. Others wondered if Ron, overcome by stress and the weight of the suspicion that hung over everyone in Circleville, might have taken his own life in a moment of despair. The investigation that followed would only raise more questions than answers. No fingerprints or evidence of any other person being at the scene were found, and no witnesses came forward. And the mysterious caller who had tipped Ron off remained a voice without a face. Ron's death marked a sinister turn in the Circleville Letters case, transforming it from a series of disturbing threats and accusations into a real-life tragedy. The community's fear intensified, now shadowed by a realization that the stakes were higher than anyone had imagined. The letters, once an unsettling nuisance, were now a part of a deadly game, and it seemed that the letter writer was always one step ahead, manipulating events from the shadows. The morning after Ron Gillespie's tragic death, Circleville woke up quiet and heavy. The usual small-town buzz, kids playing in the neighborhood, folks grabbing coffee before work, that was replaced by a thick silence. It's the kind of change you feel deep in your bones when you know something bad has happened. Over at the local diner, where residents usually traded gossip and shared laughs, the mood had shifted drastically. People spoke in low, serious tones, carefully sipping their coffee and avoiding the topic they all had on their minds. Ron's family, especially Mary, was hit hard. Already tangled up in the mess of anonymous letters due to the false accusations against her, while Mary now had to navigate her grief under the watchful eyes of the whole town. It seemed like everyone was watching her every move, watching and whispering behind her back, wondering if she was somehow involved in the tragedy or just an unfortunate target. There were whispers around town. Was Ron's crash a horrible accident brought on by stress of everything? Or was there something more sinister at play here? These speculations hung in the air, heavy like the fog that rolls in from the river, making it even simple conversations feel loaded. As Circleville struggled with Ron's loss and the shadows of the letters, it felt like the town itself was changing. What once was a close-knit community now felt scattered and on edge, with everyone waiting for the other shoe to drop. The blend of mourning and a desperate need for answers was pushing everyone to their limits, setting the stage for more turmoil to come. The investigation into the Circleville Letters was led by Pickaway County Sheriff Dwight Radcliffe, a figure whose name would become closely associated with the case. Sheriff Radcliffe's involvement began when the initial letters started arriving in 1976, targeting Mary Gillespie with the accusations of an affair and the threats against her family. As the letters continued, the sheriff's office faced mounting pressure to identify and stop the anonymous writer. The local sheriff's department, under pressure to solve the case and to restore peace to the community, ramped up their efforts. Radcliffe's team analyzed the handwriting, the postmarks, and the content of the letters, which were filled with detailed personal information about the recipients. Despite these efforts, the letter writer's identity remained elusive. The investigation led them to interview numerous townsfolk, from Ron and Mary's closest friends to distant acquaintances, hoping to find any link or motive that might explain the tragedy. However, the investigation faced major obstacles. The lack of a physical evidence at the crash site and the elusive nature of the caller who tipped Ron off left authorities scratching their heads. No fingerprints on the letters, at all, none. No traceable phone records for the call. Remember, we was back in the 70s. And every lead seemed to dead end into frustration. But the letter writer didn't let Sheriff Radcliffe out of the horror. He accused the sheriff of covering up Ron's death and accused him of other wrongdoings in office. So meanwhile, the letters did not stop with Ron's death. They continued, even intensified, targeting not only Mary, but also various members of the community who spoke out about the case. Each new letter was a chilling reminder to the residents of Circleville that the letter writer was still out there, watching and potentially ready to strike again. Over the span of nearly 2 decades, approximately 1,000 anonymous letters were sent to the residents of Circleville. Year after year, the mystery of who was sending the Circleville letters loomed over town like a never-ending storm. Everyone was on edge, and it didn't take much for the smallest spark of a rumor to set off a blaze of suspicion. Longtime friendships started to show cracks. People you'd known your whole life. You sat next to in church or teamed up with to play game night. Suddenly subjects of whispers. Was your buddy from high school a letter writer? Or maybe it was the quiet guy who kept to himself at the bar. It was as if the whole town was holding its breath, waiting for the next letter to drop, for the next big clue to finally blow the case wide open. In Circleville, the unsolved mystery wasn't just a topic of conversation. It was a wedge that drove people apart, leaving the community fragmented and forever changed by the shadows of doubt and fear, and that changes people. Mary Gillespie stood at the heart of the storm, worn down by the relentless scrutiny. Despite the years, her name remained attached to the scandal, a constant reminder of the pain and the loss she endured. Accusations continued to swirl around her, each new letter reigniting the whispers that perhaps she knew more than she let on. Living under such a microscope, Mary fought tirelessly to hold onto her dignity and protect her family from the worst of the rumors. But the strain was evident. Her once vibrant demeanor was now guarded, her trust in others eroded by years of suspicion. And among the ongoing mystery, a significant revelation came to light. Mary Gillespie and Gordon Massey finally admitted they had been seeing each other. However, they both swore that the relationship only began after the tragic death of Mary's husband Ron and after Massey's divorce in 1976. So according to the Crime Junkie podcast, the two swore they bonded over trying to figure the mystery writer out together, trying to put an end to their nightmare, and then just one thing led to another. This confession added another layer of seriousness to the case. Mary's admission did little to quiet the suspicion and gossip swirling around Circleville. Instead, it fueled further speculation and the true nature of her relationship with Massey and whether it had, in fact, started earlier as the letters had claimed. Despite their insistence on the timeline, many in the community couldn't help but wonder if the initial accusations held some truth. Mary's acknowledgement of the affair raised questions about the motive and deception, adding another twist to the already confusing Circleville Letters. Could this revelation have been part of a larger plot to divert attention from the true perpetrator? The community itself struggled to find normalcy. Every time it seemed like the dust might settle, a new incident or piece of gossip would fan the flames of fear up again. A car parked too long outside someone's house, an overheard argument, or a face just not well recognized. Anything could be a spark. Fresh suspects emerged over the years, each one scrutinized under the town's watchful eye, each theory more elaborate than the last. Some of the secrets that the letter writer knew couldn't be known to anybody outside the circle. And the coroner who performed Mary Gillespie's autopsy was also a recipient of the accusations. The writer claimed that he was a pedophile, and it was discovered that there was some truth in these claims. He was eventually charged with 12 counts of gross imposition on child pornography. There was corruption of a minor and an indecent exposure in 1993. As the years passed, the mystery only deepened and the community's unease grew. The intricate web of suspicion and fear left no stone unturned, and no one was above scrutiny. This is the legacy of the Circleville Letters, a chilling reminder of how quickly trust can be eroded by unseen threats. Now, as we begin to wind down this episode, we want to remind you that the journey to uncover the truth is far from over. We have gathered extensive materials for those who want to dive deeper. We have news articles, photos of Mary Gillespie's wreck, copies of some of the Circleville Letters, trial documents, and medical reports. All these resources are available on our Facebook group. Join us there for a deeper dive into the evidence and share your thoughts and theories. So in the next episode, it was 1983 and a trap was set. It seemed like the anonymous letter writer was escalating from letters to literally deadly threats. The discovery of a booby trap was a turning point that led to a dramatic arrest and a high-profile trial. We'll dive into the aftermath of the trial and explore how the letters continue to terrorize the community despite a conviction. But was the right person caught? Or was someone else pulling the strings from the shadows? We'll also take a closer look at some of the other suspects and theories that have emerged over the years. Stay tuned for more twists and turns in the story of the unseen terror, the Circleville Letters case. And that's it for this episode of Death, Lies, and Alibis. We hope that by shining a light on these local cold cases, we spark something within you, our listeners. Because the truth is, solving these cases will take more than just our words. It's going to require the dedication and collective efforts of the entire community. Don't forget to hit the follow button on the podcast so you'll never miss an episode. To learn more about how to get your case featured on the show or to get instant access to case files and reports, plus documents and many free resources, go to our Facebook group, Death, Lies, and Alibis, and join today. Or email us at deathliesalibis@gmail.com. As always, be safe, stay alert, and never stop seeking justice.